Welcome back to Purposeful Thinking. Thank you for coming back. I hope that our content has been helpful to you. The study for this afternoon is a study in the book of Romans and our dedication to God and how we should prioritize and dedicate ourselves to God. Let's go into our study. This is what Paul meticulously argues in chapter 7, and that is why we have the famous statement, when I think to do good, evil is present. That evil that's there, and I am not able to choose the right, even though I know the right, and I am willing in my heart to do the right. I am powerless in carrying out what I am trying to will. Romans 8 shows us that Jesus Christ, by what he did, broke the bondage that was over us in respect to sin. Because sin is an enslaving force that holds our will captive and pushes us only to do contrary things. And this is what God spelled out in Genesis, where it said he repented that he had made man, because all that is in man's heart is to do evil only continually. And Paul played that out in Romans 7 and show us how we were controlled by that. So Romans 8 shows that Jesus solved the problem. And now Romans 6 is giving us the ultimatum, the fact that we are now empowered and enlightened. Romans 6 is giving us the ultimatum in what we want to decide to do with our future. We have a final destiny, and now it is fair game because Jesus Christ has remedied what Satan did to our human nature. Satan, through sin, did to human nature. So Romans 6 is now telling us that there is an unprecedented level of grace, enabling power, that God has deposited over our life because we have accepted Jesus Christ. And there's also an unprecedented level of forgiveness that is available because Jesus Christ has paid the price to appease God's, not to appease, but to satisfy God's just requirement for sin. So Paul then now lay out, so in chapter 6 here, grace is functioning in two ways. It is the enabling power to overcome, and it is also a level of forgiveness that we have access to that wasn't available when God established the old covenant. So verse 15 of chapter 6 says, what then? Paul is asking the question from verse 14. Let me go back so you see why the question becomes important. Verse 13. Let me go back to there. Neither yield ye your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God as though that are alive from the dead, and your members as instrument of righteousness unto God. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. So this is where he's highlighting that there is an unprecedented enabling gift that God has given unto us. Because under the law, that gift was not there. It is not that grace wasn't there, but this is an unprecedented level of grace. And John recognized this in the Gospel of John, where he says, for the law cometh by Moses, but grace and truth comes through Jesus Christ. So Jesus brought with him a magnitude of God and God's enabling power that wasn't present before. So when we accept Christ, we are actually experiencing something that is on a level that the covenant before us didn't have. And that is why the writer of Hebrews says, "For we have a covenant that is established upon better promises than the one that existed before." So here the text is telling us, so that is why he begins 15 by saying, "What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace?" And he's saying, no, not because there's so grace here is being used from the perspective of an unfettered, let me not use the word unfettered, an abundance of forgiveness. Let me put it that way. An abundance of forgiveness that was not visible under the old covenant. So that is why he's saying, so the fact that we have this level of forgiveness, should we continue doing wrong? And he says no, because remember why God saved us, as he laid out in chapter 8. He says, "For what the law could not do," meaning the law could not give us life. It could not free our will from the bondage of sin. And the reason why sin had us down was because we had no life. So when your will is dead, you can't respond. But now we are made alive, and our will and conscience is made alive. That is why we can respond to sin. So it's like somebody that actually, and this shows you the deadliness that arises with sin. It's like those who are necrophilia. Necrophilia, the Greek word necros means the dead and philia means the love. You have some people that have some fetish that they like sleeping with dead people. And when I say sleeping, I am talking having sexual intercourse with dead persons. And it's called necrophilia. So, because necros means dead in Greek, and philia means to love. So you're in love with dead. Now the dead person cannot respond to you. But you do all manner of things to them and they can't respond. That is how our will was where sin is concerned. We could not respond and fight, as the dead person can't fight off, is not able to fight off the person that is sexually abusing their dead carcass. So it is when sin was abusing us outside of Christ, we could not overcome it or respond because we were dead. But now we are made alive. We have the power to fight back and to push off sin. And that is why Paul said, "Fight the good fight, lay hold on eternal life." Because we know we are now made alive. We were truly dead in response to sin, but we are now made alive by the power of Jesus Christ. And the reason why we are made alive is not to then now surrender to sin after we are made alive. We are now made alive to fight off sin and to stand up for ourselves, as it were. And that is why it cannot be the case. That is why Paul said, God forbid. It cannot be the case that now that you are made alive, given the tools that it takes to withstand sin, you lie down and say, "Oh, God will forgive me, so therefore I will just do what I have to do." No, because remember what he laid out in chapter 8. The reason why God sent Jesus Christ is to make us alive so we can actually respond to the abuse that sin is putting upon the human race. Because remember what he says, For what the law could not do, it could not make you alive. In that it was weak through the flesh, because the flesh is now dominant. The flesh is not your body, but your internal depraved, God rejecting instinct that just move after its feeling without understanding or perceiving what is right or wrong. So Paul tells us that what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, God did in sending his son in the light. Why did God do that? He said, so that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled within us. That is the reason why God did that, so that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled within us. So we cannot now have that ability. So if we, after we have been given the opportunity to gain back life, then lie down and allow sin to run us over, that then present what God did as a waste of time. Because God allowed Jesus to come and die to pay for our sins, so that sin might be conquered in our life. And then we go back and be buddies with sin. Then it defeats the purpose of why God did what he did. And that is why Paul says here, shall we continue? No, God forbid. Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servant to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness. So now we have the power to really choose. We can really live right if we want to. We can really live right if we want to. And that is what he's saying here. Whom you choose to obey. You notice that it's no longer now. You notice in chapter 7, he told us that even when he wanted to do right, he couldn't have done it because he had not yet experienced salvation. So he could not do the right. And that is why I often say, no one that is outside in the world can live better than somebody that is saved. It cannot happen. Because you don't have the power when you're a sinner to do the righteous requirement that salvation requires of you. If it could be naturally done without Jesus Christ being in your life, we would not need Jesus Christ. If we could naturally obey God as sinners, we would not need Jesus Christ. But it cannot be done. That is why he had to come. Because our wills are enslaved. And unless we actually get the freedom through the power that is in Jesus Christ that broke sin, then and that is why Paul says, for the law of the Spirit of life, because now you are made alive, has made me free. Because our will is now made alive and enabled and activated to overcome. So you truly can choose now. In 7, it says, when I want to do good, I cannot do it. But now he's telling us, because of what Jesus did, we can actually choose to obey if we want. Is there any question? All right, let me continue. But God be thanked. This is why he's thanking God, because he knows that the statement that he made in 16 only is possible because of what God did, because he tells us that in chapter 8 that what the law could not do, God did. So he's thanking God now. But God be thanked that ye were the servants of sin, but ye have obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine which delivered to you. You notice what he says? You have to in order to become obedient the way that we ought to, it's something that we have to make up in our minds. We have to make up in our mind and be really serious about it. And when we do that, it means that we are putting everything behind of it. Because sometimes the reason why we fail is because we are not putting our thoughts, our desire, and everything behind. That is why the Lord said, if you seek me with your whole heart, meaning we put everything behind of it, you will find me. And he said again, he that hunger, when you are hungry, your mind is on the food, your desire is for the food, your appetite is for the food, all of your senses are set to engage. You understand? And that is why he says, that is why he says, he that hunger and thirst after righteousness shall be filled. Because when you hunger and thirst after righteousness, you are put, just as your natural hunger, where you're putting everything behind pursuing that food, your thoughts, your energy, your desire, your feelings, all of that. The same is true when you want to do righteousness. You put everything behind of it, and that is why I say, if you seek me with your whole heart. Because when we're hungry, our whole heart is behind getting something to eat. So that is the kind of mindset and desire. Because if we want to serve God, but our it's just something that we want to do because we know it's right. I remember, I think Augustine said this in his confession, but I first only witnessed it with individuals who find themselves in wrongs and then know that what they're doing is wrong, and then say, I want to stop, but I don't know if I want to stop now. That is just having the mind because you know what is right or wrong, but your desire is not aligned with your mind. So you can have the mind to do something, but your desire have to be aligned with your mind, and that's how we get things done. I remember the story that they tell. I don't think it's a true story, but there's a message behind of it. They said there was this man who used to walk with this pastor to church, and he used to say, Pastor, my, look how hard you working, man. If I only had money, I would buy you a car, man. And he always said that when they were walking home from church. And the brother got some money. I think they said that, and this is why I believe it is made up, because a Christian, you must not play lotto. But they said that he won the lotto, so I think it's a made up story. And he won a whole lot of money, and he buy himself a nice car, and he blew by the pastor. And the pastor said, but didn't you say that if you have money, you would purchase a car for me? He said, Pastor, when I never had money, I had the mind. But now that I have money, I don't have the mind. So that's why you don't have a car. So he had the mind when he never had money, which is he had the desire, I should say, let me put it this way. He had the desire when he never had money. But when he obtained the money, he didn't have the desire to do it. So having a mind to do something is one thing, but having the desire to do it is another. And you know this firsthand because many times you say, boy, I want to get deeper in the word and knowing the word, And you make a covenant and say, you know what, this year, coming in 2021, I'm going to read my Bible more. And you never get around to read. You have the mind, but you don't have the desire. The only time we get things done is when we have the desire coupled with the mind and the drive. And that is what is called zeal. Zeal is the drive to accomplish what our desires are. So, in order to be successful in serving God, your mind has to be aligned with your desire as well as having a zeal pushing you to fulfill that drive that you have. Paul then make it clear, being then made, the fact that we are free from sin, he became servants of righteousness. I speak after the manner of men because of the infirmity of your flesh. Those who just got on, I'm reading from Romans 6. I'm at verse 19. For as ye have yield your members servants to uncleanness, to iniquity, even so now yield your members servants of righteousness unto holiness. So what Paul is saying, when we were in the world as sinners, we never care about righteousness. We gave ourselves over wholly and solely to iniquity, to wickedness. And he's saying, just as how you were loyal when you were sinners to wickedness, that is how you must be loyal to righteousness, because it's only fear. When you were a sinner, you were driven by evil desires and you complied. And he's now saying, now that you have become the temple of God, the Spirit of God is leading you into righteousness, and it's only fear that you also comply. It can be the case where when we were sinners, we were loyal to sinful deeds, and we talk proudly and testify about how we were. But now, when we become servants of God, we don't have the same mindset and dedication. I remember when I was in the world, we would set up and bleach to go to parties. Those of you who don't know street language, bleaching means we preserve ourselves so that we could party. So one of what we would do at times, we would go if we know that there's a party tonight, we would go and sleep from about 7, 8 o'clock, and we get up 11, 12, 1 o'clock and get ready, depending on the nature of the kind of party. And why we did that, which is obvious, we did that so we could stay up and fully enjoy ourselves to the full extent of the party. For those of you who know about dancehall and parties, party just begin at like 1, 2 o'clock. And 3, 4 o'clock is the heart of the party. So you want to, and normally your body start to shut down by 10, 11 o'clock. So in order to be prepared, you set up yourself. And that is why when we come to the church now, the church called all-night prayer, we try our best to do the same, get some sleep so that we can function in the prayer. Because that's what we used to do when we wanted to enjoy ourselves in the world. So the same dedication that we had then, and how we would make sure we can dedicate ourselves, we must come to the church with that level of dedication. But we don't think that way. One of the things that allowed me when I started out, I never realized. I remember when I started out, when I used to play football, soccer, American term, I was dedicated to my craft. When I get in the nights after practice, I would still practice on my own, even though I practice for hours in the day. And that allowed me to excel really well at it. And when I just got baptized, I said to myself, I was dedicated to this thing, and I wanted to play professionally for a living. But circumstances happened and I changed my pursuit. Even after I came here, I was pursued by teams to come and play, and I told them no. And coming to the Lord was the only thing I found that I loved more than when I used to do that. And I said to myself, the same dedication and discipline that I had doing that to make sure I was good at it, I am going to put out the extra effort to do it. And I would do that. I would come to church. We would have all night prayer at church. And we would leave 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I would go home. See, sometimes people see you. They don't know the dedication and the time that you put out and the sacrifice that you have to make. We would have all night prayer at church, Saturday night into Sunday morning. We would leave church 5 o'clock. And I would go home and I would sleep to whatever time I wake up, probably 9, 10 o'clock. And as soon as I wake up, I would get myself together and I would put my backpack on my back with my Bible and my songbook. And I would head back to church by 12 o'clock in the day. We just left church 5 o'clock. And I would stay there all day until night service, until church over in the night. That's how dedicated I was, because I wanted to know God. I wanted to learn about God. I wanted to better myself. And I look on the dedication that I had in the world, and I said to myself when I just got baptized, I am going to try and apply the same level of intensity and dedication that I had in the world. So I understand exactly what Paul is saying. That we were committed. And most of us were committed, but now when things of the church comes up, we don't want to pursue it with the same level of zeal and dedication. And we should. And that's what Paul is saying here. When you are servants of sin, you give it your all. So now that you come over to God, it's only fair on the basis of what God has done God has done, I should say, for us, that we dedicate ourselves with the same passion, even more passion and intensity. But now being made free from sin and become servants to God, you have your fruits unto holiness and the end, everlasting life. So he's saying, if holiness is what we should pursue, righteousness is what we should pursue, and the fruits will be shown for it. I am able to come here now tonight and to do this, and I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. I'm just using myself as an example to make the text become more real. It was those nights and days that I spent studying why I could be here doing this now. It was those days of dedication, getting up 9 o'clock in the night, studying by myself, fasting, praying, seeking God, asking God to help me, asking God to allow me to understand more, and pursuing God and investing in material to study. Why I could do this now. So Paul is saying to us, if you put forth fruits into righteousness, if you allow righteousness and holiness to drive you, the fruits will show. So the fruits of my labor that I put. We have come to the end of our study. I hope that the content was helpful. Please remember to like, subscribe, leave your comment, leave your suggestion, so we can continue to build on what we are doing. We are here to inspire, to educate, to help, and to change minds and to challenge us to think beyond what we are seeing. And I hope that the studies that we have been doing have been helpful to you. Until next time, keep on thinking purposefully so that your life may be changed and you may realize your purpose.